Mutationem is a game published through Lightening Games, and it's the second title coming from the Beijing indie developers known as Thinking Stars, with their first title being this game known as Deep Battle Jove, a title that is centered around Star Wars-like firefights via these spaceships in outer space. Anno Mutationem, which throughout this review I will be abbreviating to AM, is a part of the China Hero Project, which according to PlayStation.com, is a program based on the PlayStation platform which strongly supports Chinese-funded game developers, mainly startups, to enter the whole Chinese and global market, committed to create a successful game works worldwide and cultivation and development of the Chinese game industry. As of the time of this review, the game Fist, where you play as this anthropomorphic bunny rabbit with a mecha arm, just released not too long ago, and it was also part of the CHP. Another title from the CHP that I've been looking at since 2016 is a game known as Lost Solarcide, which is this incredible fast-paced third-person action game that looks inspired by Devil May Cry, and is essentially what gamers imagined Final Fantasy 15 to be like before we got, well, what we got. As a matter of fact, in terms of action and visuals, Final Fantasy 15 wish it can be like this. But what's even more impressive about looking at this game is that this was made by one person. Yes, you heard right, one person did all this, whereas Square Enix, a whole AAA conglomerate, gave us this. And if you want to know his name is Bing Yang. But I'm getting too carried away, so I found out about AM back in 2020. It was initially supposed to be released in 2021, but got pushed back to 2022. And here we are. Today, I will be reviewing the PlayStation 4 version, so let's get into it. This game looks beautiful. It perfectly and masterfully blends the concept of utilizing 2- and 3-dimensional perspectives simultaneously. And if that wasn't enough, sometimes during the cinematic moments, things can be seen from a first-person perspective. The characters and items within AM are represented by these pixelated sprites reminiscent of anime-like characteristics, while the background illustrates high graphical visuals, bringing a sense of realistic qualities to the game's visuals. From time to time, I had to take a moment just to sit and take in the almost overwhelming spectacle that are these mini metropolis areas. Like really, there's so much going on. Like, take this area for example, a somewhat dense population of people walking around, vehicles going by, and things happening to thoroughly convince the player that this world is a living and breathing place. That within itself is something to be applauded, because other games, well, they kind of had trouble with that. But this is just an example of the daytime. In other areas where it's night, you can see all of these neon signs, characters in dresses, and of course, everywhere you look, there is going to be some sense of a human or a robot android-like being just chilling. As far as the character models go, the denizens of AM look distinctly unique in their sprites and designs. However, when it comes down to the enemy types, there are only a handful that looks different, but over time becomes very familiar, seeing that this game utilizes this as a way to recognize what type of enemies they are and determine what proper approach to defeat them. How this game handles its loading screens is a nice little detail that I love. Like how when I'm on my way to another hub area while driving, you get to see Anne moving while these raindrops just hit up against the windows. Now during the cutscenes in AM, the characters come to life with just a simple position changes and constant motion that, if not coming from the characters themselves, then from the way the camera steady moves while viewing the cutscenes. But overall, as far as the visuals goes in this game, it's beautiful. Through some of the set pieces, I could see what possibly could have been some of its inspirations. For example, a somewhat cybernetic female protagonist waking up in her apartment with the bed being close to a huge window looks a little bit too familiar. While I'm talking about this, I have to give praise to one detail that may seem insignificant to most players, but it's something that I have to acknowledge, and that's the lighting. How it radiates and casts the shadows upon surfaces, not to mention how it makes the water and the ground from the main menu look so sleek and glossy. It's just something that I kinda like. Plus, it only adds to the aesthetics of AM's presentation. The story of Anno Mutationem is about this woman named Anne Flores and a very close friend, Ayane. To oversimplify the plot, essentially the whole entire journey is about finding Anne's brother, who apparently has gotten himself into a lot of trouble. On her search, she begins to discover that there are more powerful entities that are at play here that were tied to her past. And what starts off as a simple search and rescue becomes an entirely different massive can of worms by the game's end. Prophecies, multi-dimensional threats, you know, that kind of stuff. Anno Mutationem would technically be considered a combination of a side-scroller beat-em-up with RPG elements and a focus on world exploration. I'll dive a little bit deeper into these ingredients that make this game what it is, starting with world exploration. You see, this game will be taking place within different locations that will serve as hub areas where Anne can run around, talk to NPCs, stand in the middle of the street while vehicles stop immediately before running you over, play minigames like cracking codes to enter areas and bartending, visiting shops, doing side missions, and just like any Metroidvania, accessing different areas after triggering an event or obtaining an item, and of course, backtracking. To assist the player in navigating these areas is a map located at the top right of your screen. But because of AM's unique art direction, the 3D landscape gives the player the freedom to move within the background and foreground as well as left or right. However, this changes once the player gets into an area that was purposefully meant for a combat sequence to take place. When the player gets into a confrontation is where this game quickly becomes a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up. The freedom that the player would normally have to explore the back and foreground is stripped away, and it's either you move left or right of the screen. For offensive measures during combat, the player will have access to weapons which would include swords and firearms of various types. The types of swords, or rather blades, that the player will have access to is a regular sword, which is well balanced when it comes to dealing damage and its attack speed, a great sword that is slow but does a whole lot of damage, and two twin blades that are fast when it comes to attack speed but kinda low in regards to doing damage. Each of these weapons has a good purpose and serves a role depending on the enemy that you're facing. The other type of weapons just consist of things that can fire projectiles, namely guns. The other two things that needs the player's attention is of course the health bar for yourself and your enemy, which can be seen after scanning the area, but also, and probably more importantly, is the second blue bar, which serves as the health for their shields. With every attack, two numbers appear, the red for their health and the blue for their shields. If the player depletes an opponent's shield, they will be open for an attack where you can do heavy damage to them, but one must be quick because their shield will regenerate itself. When it comes down to defensive measures, Anne has the ability to roll on the ground to evade attacks and the shield to block attacks. However, in order for the player to pull this off, they must be facing towards the direction of the attack to block it. And when you do block the attack, you will take damage, but not that much. What is useful is this parry system that if you use your shield before an enemy's attack connects with you, you can block the attack, causing damage to them and their shield. The better the player is with this, the less of a hassle this game becomes, especially coming up on the back end of this game, where it pits you up against multiple enemies at once. Case in point, Metal Gears. One thing you must take note is that the enemies would choreograph what they're about to do next via this red flash, but as the tougher enemies come into play, this helpful mechanic just seems to vanish. The combat for Anno for the most part is fun, but there were just a couple of things that I had to grow accustomed to. One is acknowledging the fact that Anne can be a little bit slow. Certain battles pointed out just how her reaction speed may need a second when it comes to me trying to parry an attack, and that's on top of being aware of the direction I'm facing when I'm trying to parry. Another minor thing that will pop up from time to time is how your character can be on top of another character, making the player's attempt of attacking useless due to the misconceived placement and distance of characters. Now going into the RPG elements, I could somewhat group this in with the various items and means of currency the player is going to be collecting. AM doesn't have a leveling mechanic in terms of numerical value, but instead has the skill tree that grants the player a bit more of an advantage in terms of combat techniques and quality of life upgrades. But as you see, the skill tree is somewhat divided into two parts, with the top half being blue and the bottom part being red. The top blue unlockables can only be unlocked once the player obtains enough of something known as quirks, which you get after defeating normal enemies. The bottom red portion of the skill tree that can increase attack damage, luck, and even your health can be unlocked by obtaining Grom, which is usually granted to the player after defeating the boss level type of enemy. Within the combat session, I touched on the weapons that Anne utilizes. These weapons can be bought, crafted if you have the correct amount of materials, and be customized via these chips that gives more helpful attributes to the weapons when equipped to it. Now when it comes to crafting weapons and chips, the materials that serve as the ingredients can be found within the random objects that you find via these glowing objects that Anne can stand next to. In order for you to know what particular random objects may have the materials that you may need, you'll have to scan the room. And once you do this, the particular items that you may need will start glowing. I would strongly recommend the player to do a clean sweep of every area for materials because they will be helpful. When you find these specific dudes that's peppered throughout this game's world, they'll be able to do the crafting for you. And somewhere about these guys will be another person who likes to sell you things, namely these particular energy drinks that serves as potions. Now onto the crafting. Some of the materials that the player will pick up will have to be dismantled via these shops or these merchants that pop up in pivotal moments of the game. But more stronger weapons will become available after reaching certain points within the game's narrative. Lastly, there are items that can be crafted on the fly via your pause menu that can help during your battles, such as health packs to heal you, items to buff up your character temporarily, and lastly, disposable weapons like different types of grenades. Please keep in mind that this type of crafting can also be accessed by coming across these save points that kinda look like small swimming pools. These areas are helpful not only for saving your game, but also a means of fast travel to instantly take you back to wherever another save point is located. Now there was one other area form of gameplay that Anno Mutationem experiments with, and it's one that I have a few criticisms for, and that would be the platforming. I think whoever designed these sessions were geniuses, but in times where certain segments relied on speed, I have to admit I failed quite a few number of times. But once I got the hang of what allowed me to move a little bit faster, everything was pretty cool. The issue is just figuring out what to do in order for you to move faster. But besides that, what do I think about Anno Mutationem's overall gameplay experience? Well, I think it's fun and diverse. It definitely requires not only knowledge of how to move around, but getting better materials, resources, and observational skills in order to survive. The sound design for Anno Mutationem is pretty awesome. The voice acting deserves to be commended especially. The standout to me was Ayane, voiced by Lizzie Freeman, who is also the voice actor for Hinata Tachibana from Tokyo Revengers, Kodako Iwagana from Inspector, Chizuru from Rent a Girlfriend, Armor from Stroke Your Sage and the Weakest Curse, and Hold on for a minute. Anime is my domain. You're in my territory now. Stick to the indie games, please. Oh, and to everybody else, how y'all doing? I'll see y'all later. Oh, my bad. Well, in AM, she gives a stellar performance in exuding this undeniable, energetic, and lighthearted character.
I'd never wear something like this. Were it not for Ryan.
I bet Ray wouldn't be able to resist.
What?
Never mind. Let's go inside.
It's kind of hard not to notice just how she is somewhat the polar opposite of Anne, voiced by Suzy Young, who is also the voice of Yuffie Kuzuragi from Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. Unlike Ayane, Anne is much more of the introvert when it comes to her tone. You kind of see both of these different personalities bounce off each other.
Good morning, darling. It's a beautiful day. Perfect day for a cute skirt. Wow.
Your new toy?
Darling, it's our second friendiversary gift. Now my voice can accompany you everywhere. Wherever you are, I'll be there too.
That's great.
It's me, so don't lose it. Promise?
As long as it doesn't get in the way, I'm gonna shower.
You can take it in with you. It's waterproof.
Oh no, you're staying outside.
The only criticism that I have towards the acting is pretty much these moments where these awkward long pauses always happen between statements. But besides the voice acting, when you hear your strike connects with your enemies and parries being successful during your combat, it's pretty rewarding. Oh, and not to mention the cinematic moments, they are just mwah, chef's kiss. The music of Anno Mutationem has this futuristic techno-electronic vibe to it, but what would you expect from a game like this? According to the Steam page, it was done by, and I know I'm going to butcher this name, Hollow Wickham, which is this guy that is the director of the Vanguard Sound, an entity composed of many talented people who provide services dealing with music composition, sound design, voice cast, recording, middleware, and lastly visual designs. I'll drop a link to the official website in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. So I sat down to listen to the whole entire OST all the way through, from start to finish. And I must say, there are various arrays of vibes sharing similar themes but in different ways throughout this OST, and it's kind of what I like about this soundtrack. One of my favorite tracks is a record known as Strangers, which has this electronic percussion of a rhythm, while the same synth note permeate throughout the whole entire song repeatedly. Then on songs like Backstreet Gangsta and Loki's Mecha, pretty much they just come in stumping in with their bass and kick drums. It sounds like it's part of the dark synth wave genre, but above all the songs, my most favorite is Absalom. It's fast paced, heart pumping, and in combat, it's like playing the Eye of the Tiger when you're about to go in and kick some behinds. With these tunes playing within the background, it definitely adds to the overall experience. You can purchase Anno Mutationem's OST via Steam, but if you're like me and you're playing AM on the PS4, it's included within a deluxe edition with plenty of other goodies that can be accessed during the main screen of the game. So with everything covered, I'm going to give this game a 9 out of 10. Anno Mutationem is a hidden gem, needless to say. It looks amazing, sounds great, the story is straightforward. To complete this game would probably take the player around, I would say the ballpark of probably like 20 hours to complete. What's interesting to me though is that this game hasn't been out that long, well at least for my taste during the time of this review. But anyway, there's already hints that Anno Mutationem is going to have some new content coming towards it. And after completing this game, I would say this game serves as an introduction into this world, a part 1 of sorts. If you are a fan of beat 'em ups, futuristic settings, or rather, well, let me just come out and say it, Ghost in the Shell baby. If you like that, then I definitely recommend you to go and pick this one up. Anno Mutationem is now available for PlayStation 4 and 5 and also for Steam for Windows PC for $25. But yeah, I really think that you should go ahead and pick this up. But anyway, until next time, be safe out there, and peace y'all.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit up that notification bell, and I gotta go.
Wait just a minute. Just when I thought it was safe to drop this review, I decided to pop in the game one more time just to play it before moving on to the next game. And lo and behold, I see something new. beginning with this option at the main menu screen glowing that says on the dawn of an ending. So apparently a new update was released, and judging by the additional content, it provides more weapons and outfits. But what is more significant is that it alters Anno Mutationem's ending. Well, the player now has access to multiple endings, a good ending and a not so good ending depending on this one decision that you make. In my honest opinion, these new endings do a good job at tying up loose ends, whereas the original ending of the game left the player with more questions of what will happen to multiple characters and their situations. This update could be what the developers was hinting at, but either way, I'm cool with it. It gives better closure, but with doing so, hopes of a sequel is seemingly becoming less likely. But hey, only time could tell, right? Be safe out there, and peace y'all.